I'm Ashton Addison from EventChain for Investment Pitch Media and FinTech News Network. And today on Blockchain Interviews, we have Rachel Wolfson, CoinTelegraph reporter and host of the Crypto Chick on the Bad Crypto podcast. Rachel, thanks so much for taking the time to come on the show. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
Hey, you're very welcome. I'd love to kick off the show by getting a little bit of your background on yourself, your work in reporting, and how that led to writing for one of the top cryptocurrency news sites today, CoinTelegraph.
Yeah, definitely. So a little bit of background on myself. I've been writing about blockchain and cryptocurrency, about the space since 2017. I started off writing for Huffington Post as a contributor. And I think I published my first blockchain article, I think it was July 2017. And then from there, I became a staff writer with Bitcoin Magazine in December 2017. And then I eventually got on as a Forbes contributor in 2018, spent almost 2 years with Forbes. And then in 2019, at the end of 2019, I got on as a staff reporter with CoinTelegraph. So very excited about that. I really like that writing for CoinTelegraph so far. So yeah, that's kind of my background in the space.
That's great. And I could imagine you're jumping into a crazy pit of news in the cryptocurrency industry. There's so many things going on all the time. And to jump in, with Bitcoin Magazine right when Bitcoin was at its all-time high price, I can imagine the sentiment and the news articles were firing out every day. Has it been very fast-paced since you jumped in?
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a good point. In 2017, when I started with Bitcoin Magazine, I mean, things were a lot different in terms of like the cryptocurrency space. Like the hype was really high. ICOs were the thing back then. And so, at that time, I was constantly being pitched ICOs, which thankfully I didn't write about too many of them because a lot of them, just ended up being scams. But then in 2018, we really started seeing enterprises starting to leverage blockchain technology. And so that was great. And I think that really matched with the whole, being a contributing writer with Forbes to write about it, the enterprises using blockchain rather than the cryptocurrency side of things. In 2017, it was all very kind of sketchy back then. So, I mean, yeah, it's been fast paced, but it's been different throughout the years for sure. Right now, 2020, I mean, there's less hype around blockchain and cryptocurrency, but to me, I'm still getting so many press releases. And for me, it's still a very fascinating space. I mean, I think now we're seeing real world innovation with blockchain versus what we were seeing in 2017, which was more about the ICOs and cryptocurrency side of things.
There was definitely a lot more just ideas on paper back then, and now we're starting to weed out and see where's the real value. It can be properly implemented into different enterprise businesses, and there's been some good news, and there's been a lot of news since the lockdown started, especially. And I noticed that you had recently reported on a blockchain company looking to look for the legitimacy of KN95 masks because of counterfeiting, and that's one part of the supply chain that blockchain can help with. When you dug into this story, was there a lot of, is it something that is really needed right now in terms of this is a major counterfeiting issue, and how exactly did you see blockchain solving that problem?
Yeah, I mean, one of the best use cases for blockchain is that it provides transparency, and it can really be used to provide transparency when it comes to supply chain management. Not only does it provide transparency, but it also connects different entities together where they can all kind of communicate on one single platform. So blockchain for supply chain management is really useful. That being said, a real ICE company, they're the public blockchain by transparency during this global pandemic. So basically, when I was reading the article, KN95 masks are different than N95 masks. I don't know if you knew that, but not a lot of people know that. So anyways, KN95 masks are manufactured in China, and they're not, I guess they aren't really used in America because they aren't, the N95 masks are approved by the FDA. I don't think the KN95 masks are. So what Real Items company is doing by leveraging the VeChain blockchain, they're ensuring that these KN95 masks being produced at a factory with a location in China and in Seattle, that these are authentic KN95 masks. Keep in mind that China does account for 80% of the world's counterfeit products. So a lot of the products coming from China are counterfeits. So a lot of these KN95 masks that people are getting that aren't authenticated are counterfeit masks, meaning they really don't provide that much use. If you're going to go to the grocery store and wear a mask, you want it to be, you know, a legitimate, useful mask that will help keep you safe. If you're wearing a fake KN95 mask, I mean, that's no better than covering your face with like a handkerchief.
Definitely an important issue. And I believe, you know, the KN95 masks are supposed to be very similar to N95, but I can imagine if you had a counterfeit one, it would not be very similar at all. So, and that's great to see that VeChain, as you know, one of the larger blockchain platforms, is helping verify the authenticity through their platform. I'm curious, on the business side of it, is it very easy for a customer to check the authenticity of a mask, or for the suppliers, or is it all, you know, in the back end with coders and it's not very, you know, user friendly to actually see the verification on the blockchain?
Yeah, so I mean, according to David, the CEO of Real Items company, and they're the ones doing this, and they leverage the VeChain blockchain. There's a barcode on each box. So there are boxes with the masks inside of them. Each box contains a barcode. When you scan that barcode with a smartphone, you can see that these masks were produced in a certain factory and that they are authentic KN95 masks. So, I mean, it's as easy as that, just scanning a barcode with your smartphone to see, for the retailers to see that they've been shipped a legitimate supply of KN95 masks. And then as far as the consumer goes, I'm not sure if they can also scan the barcode to see. I think that they can. I could be wrong, but I know for sure that the retailers can scan that barcode to see that these masks were produced in that certain factory that Real Items company is partnering with, and that all of those masks have been authenticated. And everything is transparent because it's on the VeChain blockchain, so you can see all of the information that's needed to know that these masks are authentic.
Well, it's great to know that it's as easy as a barcode to scan, but I guess the question that lies beyond that is, for, you know, Real Items company to implement this, you know, these mask manufacturers have had to ramp up their production so quickly, you know, with the pandemic coming out of nowhere. Not like they've been in discussion on implementing blockchain for a long time. Was it easy, or is it easy for blockchain companies to integrate into supply chain and this quickly to start verifying masks, when people who are creating counterfeit masks can just as easily start their production up and start shooting out fake masks in the same speed?
Right. I mean, and that's a really good question. I think I spoke with David about the challenges of implementing blockchain and these companies to be used to authenticate KN95 masks. And basically, you know, I think the challenge here is that blockchain is still a developing, emerging technology, and companies are still hesitant to bring blockchain onto their platform and to leverage it because they don't know much about it. And also, when you think of blockchain, sometimes, I mean, I don't anymore, but maybe in 2017, you thought of blockchain and you would think of Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. I mean, in this case, it has nothing to do with crypto or Bitcoin. It's just leveraging the technology to provide transparency and authenticate these products. I think the challenge is getting companies to agree to use blockchain. And also, I think regulations are also challenging. I don't know in terms of, like, you know, the regulations around KN95 masks in America and what steps need to be taken in order to even have these used here. But I think just really getting these companies on board to use blockchain is one of the main challenges. I mean, you also have to realize that, like, companies have to share their data with different entities, and some companies don't want to do. I mean, in the case of authenticating KN95 masks, I think that isn't as problematic as, you know, for instance, sharing for like the IBM Food Trust Network, where there are different food suppliers sharing data. Like Walmart might not want Carrefour to know, you know, to have access to data. They're both on the same network. But I think in this case of the KN95 masks, it's different.
Yeah, and I love that you touched on the fact that it's not really paying with cryptocurrency or, you know, using Bitcoin or Monero or any of these cryptographic coins. It's really still paying with fiat, just using the blockchain as a tool to verify the authenticity. And often people that are just starting to learn about blockchain have not differentiated the two between a cryptocurrency and a blockchain that can, you know, imprint information. So I'm really glad that you've clarified that. Now, one of the other hot topics since the lockdown has been voting across America. You know, people are locked in their houses. They don't want to go into mass lineups or go vote at the ballot station. So they're looking at mail-in voting, potentially internet voting, and this is where blockchain also comes into play with blockchain-based voting, so they can prove, you know, the authenticity of one vote, one person. You recently did some findings into this. Could you elaborate a little bit on the situation and where you see blockchain fitting into this right now?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I did write an article about that recently, and I wrote about votes. So they're a blockchain-based voting platform. And I mean, the conclusion that I came to in the article is that blockchain still has the same security vulnerabilities as online voting platforms do. I mean, it's not more secure than, you know, the typical ways that you can vote on a smartphone, for instance. What blockchain adds, though, is that it adds transparency, and accountability as well. So when you're using an online voting platform to send votes, you know, yes, that's vulnerable to security issues like malware attacks and all of that. But sometimes you don't know if your vote was accounted for, or like, you know, and you want to know that. And so blockchain can provide that information, that extra layer of accountability and transparency to this whole, you know, to the online voting situation. So I wouldn't say that it's more secure. It's not for sure, but it just adds an extra layer of transparency and accountability if that's something that's necessary in this case, which I think it is. I mean, imagine submitting a vote and not knowing if your vote was even counted or what. So
yeah, definitely very important to be able to check that your vote actually mattered. You know, you can mail out a vote and never hear a word back and be unsure. So, but it's really interesting that you touch on that it's not more secure right now. Now, do you know if that's because of the way that it's being implemented? And, you know, from a bird's eye view of blockchain, a lot of people see it as, you know, inconfiscatable money, or it's very more secure than a private database. Is it a way that voting can be implemented in the future, which will allow for the security features of blockchain as well? Do you know if the times will change with that?
Yeah, I mean, and I wrote about this in the article as well. As of now, like for instance, votes, it's a great platform. And I know West Virginia was using it at some point, and apparently that pilot went really, really well. But there are some issues that need to be worked out to make it that ideal platform. So while blockchain is a great use case for voting, it still has some vulnerabilities that need to be worked out in order to ensure that this is a more secure way of voting. I quoted Ben Fish. He's a PhD. He's studying PhD at Stanford. He's getting his PhD in cryptography at Stanford, excuse me. And he wrote that there are ways to work around to ensure that blockchain would provide a more secure voting system, but those ways haven't been achieved yet. So he discusses that in the article.
Great. So I guess we're not going to be voting on the Bitcoin blockchain for this upcoming election then.
Right. And I mean, even votes, and they're pretty well established and they've been around for a while. I mean, they've still got some issues to work out, but it's totally possible to work those issues out to ensure that this platform becomes widely adopted and used in the future. And West Virginia, even the contact that I spoke to there mentioned that he would like to eventually implement votes again moving forward once those, you know, issues are worked out. So we'll just see what happens.
That's great. And lastly, I saw that you're participating in the virtual blockchain week. There's been a crazy amount of virtual events coming up with nobody allowed to go outside, and they're fiending for some connection. What are you going to be speaking about in the virtual blockchain week, and when is it for the viewers?
Yeah, so I'm going to give a 20-minute keynote presentation during virtual blockchain week. I believe I'm doing that on April 27th, maybe 6 p.m. PST. I'm not sure of the exact time and date, but I can get back to you on that. But I'm going to be speaking about the blockchain industry from a journalist's perspective, meaning, I think I'm going to talk about blockchain through the years, for instance, just kind of what we were talking about in the beginning of the interview. What have I seen? What's changed? What do I think the future of blockchain looks like? Mm-hmm. And then I know everybody is curious. Well, not everybody, but people in this space are curious, like, how do you pitch a journalist? And, what do I need to know when speaking with a journalist? How do I get my story published? Like, what's interesting? So mm-hmm. I'm going to go into a little bit of those details as well. So yeah, I'm excited.
That's great. And if there are people that are looking to follow your work or get in contact with you, what is the best way for them to reach out and find more?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm very active on Twitter. My handle is @RachelWolf00. If you message me there, follow me, I'll definitely respond. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn. I use Instagram. My name there is Blockchain in Bikinis. So yeah, I'll respond there as well. And also email is good. My CoinTelegraph email is rachel@cointelegraph.com.
Great. Thank you so much, Rachel. I will leave all of that in the description box below for the viewers. And it's been a pleasure speaking with you, and all the best moving forward with your work and with your keynote at the Virtual Blockchain Week. And let's follow up in the near future.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you, Ashton.